Hi, welcome back. Today I want to talk a little bit about one of the primary tools that we use in literary analysis called close reading. Really what we're going to go over here today is how to read a literary text. Now I already know you know how to read. This is how to read more critically and more refined. One of the great things about doing literature is that you don't need to have a PhD in philosophy or be well versed in history or international politics to be able to understand what's going on. You just need to read the text. It's all there. It's all right in the details. There's no hidden meaning that we're trying to uncover. We always begin with the text itself, and the method that we use in literature is called close reading. When we use close reading, we're really finding out not what a text means, but more how a text means. In doing close reading, we examine the details of a text to build its meaning. We look at specific details, things like word choice, things like descriptions or metaphors or images or symbols. We look at things like grammatical constructions. We think about things like sentence structure. We think about things like rhetorical tropes or poetic features. Every detail we examine to find out more about and what it means. There's three axioms we stand behind when we look at close reading. These stand behind all close reading. These are the assumptions that we make as we step into doing close readings. The first axiom is that the text is meaningful. There's more in a text than the author's intent. There's more in a text than some hidden meaning that we're there to decipher somehow. The text is not a code to crack. It's a meaning to be made. And the text is meaningful. The text is purposeful. Second, we have to imagine that all of the things that are happening in the text are happening on purpose. Not because they've been placed there by some all-knowing author who decided what the details were going to mean, but because the text itself is conveying meaning to us. This means that every detail we examine has the potential to build meaning. This goes all the way down to the level of punctuation, but all the way up to the level of chapter structures. Just think about it. The difference between a period and a semicolon and an em dash. Now, all of those pieces of punctuation denote the same thing, a separation between independent clauses. But they all do something a little bit different, right? A period gives us great separation between ideas. The text is trying to keep these things separate. A semicolon says these ideas are linked, they're very similar. An em dash is literally drawing a line between those two ideas. Each of those pieces of punctuation, as small as they are on the page, convey incredible weight in the meaning. That means that the text is purposeful. We have to go into the text with the assumption that anything in here could be on purpose. Third, the devil is in the details. Now, as a saying, this means that everything sounds easy until you start explaining what you're going to do. And then as soon as the details come out, it becomes much more complicated. The way it's being used here, it means a little bit more. As you engage the details of a text, you're going to find your first reading of the text gets frustrated. The text wants to challenge your first assumptions. It wants to work against your first reading. Here we find the text begins to contradict itself. It gives us ironies. It gives us contradictions, complications. These are important moments to notice because if we don't recognize the text resisting us, the danger is we'll just read ourselves onto every text. But the text might be trying to tell you something you would have never thought of before. It's important to listen carefully to what the text is saying. Just as an important side note, a caveat here, you might disagree with the text. That's okay. The text might be telling you something that you think is wrong. That's fine, but you have to know what the text says before you can decide whether or not it's right or wrong. It might be trying to tell you something you'd never thought of before. Okay, so how do you do a close reading? Here's 4 steps to close reading. The first thing you have to do is understand the literal sense. You can't get anywhere if you can't get past that first level. What is happening on the page? Give me a paraphrase of that. What is the literal thing that happens? Just the summary of what's going on. You have to understand that first level before you can go on to any other meanings in it. The next thing you'll have to do is identify the details. Look for unusual words or phrases that stand out to you, descriptions that seem unusual or metaphors you never heard before. Think about things that just jump off the page, things that are repeated, some repeated words or sounds or structures or ideas. Texts build meaning by repeating things, but repeating things with difference. Think about syntax, sentence length. Sometimes the sentence will be incredibly short, sometimes it'll be incredibly long. What is being conveyed by the length of the sentence itself? Third, categorize your findings. Start thinking about all of the things you're seeing in the text and thinking about the similarities that they have. Think about back to the literal level. Think about what's happening on this broader scale, the themes or the bigger ideas that are showing up in the text. How do these details that you've noticed begin to reflect those bigger themes? How do they intersect with those bigger themes? Finally, step 4, make a claim. Now you've done all this legwork, you can look and see from your categories, from what you found in the text, from the overall meaning, the literal sense of the text, you can begin to say, oh, these things are all lining up in a certain way. Make a claim about the meaning. Now you're ready to do that you've recognized the details. Okay, now that you know what a close reading is and you know how to do a close reading, you should know why we do a close reading. There's really 2 promises close reading gives us. The first promise is that the finer detail will reveal to us the bigger picture meaning. What happens at the macroscopic level of meaning is repeated on the microscopic level of detail. Word choice, punctuation, the smallest particles of a text repeat the biggest meaning of a text. This means that the abstract ideas can become concretized into something more manageable and more nuanced to give us a clearer idea of what the text means. Things like love, for example, these big abstract ideas that can mean many, many, many things. So big, in fact, that we think we know what they mean and trick ourselves into thinking we understand them. When we see them on the smaller level, we find a sharpness to them and a clarity to them that gives them a kind of precision that they didn't have before. This is what close reading can give us, that greater idea of clarity. The second promise of a close reading is that it democratizes knowledge. Again, you don't need to have any special background to be able to do this. Just read the text and pay attention to the details. This means that the meaning of the text is not something that is given to you from on high. It's something that you can develop yourself. It doesn't come from one seat of power, but something we all can participate in. It means that everyone is involved in the production of knowledge. And even more than that, it means that everyone contributes to the production of knowledge. No one person has the single meaning for everything. All of us contribute to recognizing the details, and in close reading, we can all bring our ideas together to the table and have them bear the same weight. Okay, so I've left some additional things to do in the section down below here, some exercises on close reading and a handout to go over. Give those a look, fill those out, and see what you come up with. Looking forward to talking to you on Friday.